absolutely. Those are good questions. You guys, every time we do this, everyone asks more questions that it's like, yes, yes. So you guys are awesome. You guys have done your homework. So thank you. All right. So again, the signing rules: do not under initial. Make sure and look at the bottom of the documents for the little lines. The deed of trust note in the writers may have initial lines. So again, triple check. In this case, do not over initial. So if there aren't any lines, do not ask them to initial the page. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, do not add your stamp to a line that looks like this unless it has notarial wording in a certificate form. All right. And just for your entertainment, quickly, I'm going to drop this little gem or nugget, if you're going to call it that way. The reason why we are very forward in telling you don't just stamp it loosely. From the great state of Texas, you can look it up on your own time and Google Stormy Daniels versus the Trump administration. We're not bringing this for anything to do with politics, but a notary did get some discipline action because she freely stamped a document that did not have certificate verbiage. So again, that's something you can look up because it's a really good case example of when because you're going to meet celebrities. I guess most of you will. I have signed several celebrities, several professional athletes and so forth. And, so if you mess up, TMZ is going to be at your door.
That poor girl, though. I mean, all the notaries in Texas, and they come to her and she's not got it down yet. And she winds up in the news. I just felt my heart went out to her.
She had amazing, impeccable journal records. And so they just made an example out of her for something that was just dumb. But that's why being a notary, you're not shielded. You've really got to master the basics. All right. So signing rules, just really quick, continue on. There's going to be, and it's hit or miss, but I see this often enough. Well, there's an allonge. It's an attachment to the note. It does not have any place for the signer to sign. It does not have anything for the notary to sign. We see this a lot online. If it's not asking for any party to sign it, you're just going to flip it over. Same thing with the transfer of lien or an assignment of lien. It's usually by the lender only. Now, there's always exception to the rules because sometimes these lenders just do niche type of lending, and their lending practice does not necessarily curb Fannie Mae guidelines. It's just kind of a abnormal type of borrowing. Legal, of course, just it's not on the radar as your standard CFPB loans. They may actually have an exception, and it may have the borrower sign. It's extremely rare, but as a signing agent, every page does not get flipped over without you glancing at it. So, all right, moving right along. This is and this is in your handouts too, I believe. This particular form is one that a lot of notaries overlook. If it is a CFPB regulated loan, this is usually in there. What happens at the bottom, it says this is valid for 90 days, and they would initial. Some lenders are savvy and they'll actually put 90 in here. So if at any point this is filled out, either voluntary or involuntary by the lender, then your signer needs to initial. And this is the, you can call it the SSA form to release their social security number. But again, you'll sleep since then, but it's in your handout.
It is.
Good. All right. We've already talked about the 3-day rescission period, right to cancel, but just to recap, it's every day except federal holidays and Sundays. And those of you that are watching this later, hopefully watch it while we're doing President's Day. This is a good time right now. I mean, literally, you guys signed up for this is the best time. This is what's happening. So if they signed yesterday, then day 1 would be today. Day 2 would be Tuesday.
And if you're like me, and I'm tired of people being shamed about using rescission tables. Who can't count to 3? Well, I don't always trust myself, and I've been doing this for 15 plus years. So I Google and find a rescission calendar, and I check to make sure I've picked the right date. So they're out there. NNA puts one out, and several title companies put one out.
Then I'm just going to skip past this one. We've already covered that.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. And they're on there. So again, we've did that example. You can't always use a rescission day calendar. I know if you sign up for Notary Rotary, they have one. So the NNA usually has some in their blogs. There's a lot of people that usually have it, and sometimes even lenders will have one for the whole entire year. So always use those resources. Um, Always make sure you have at least 3 right to cancels for each signer. You will hear this twice. And now, and when we go through the documents, which again, we scramble the order, so we're done with that. Another document that's not really a part of the Fab Five, but I mean, it's definitely a part of the Core 10 if you want to consider that, is the loan application. We probably do need to go over one because I know we have that as an example. Do we have that, Brenda? Or do you have that readily available?
I do.
Can I trouble you to do just that part, and I'll.
Yes, if you'll just give me a minute here to find it. Oops, wrong one.
Jake drank too much water, so.
Oh, now we understand.
Let me stop the sharing. Okay. But while you do that, I'm going to flip through.
Are you talking about the 1003?
Just an example of one.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let me share my screen right quick.
And I'll be right back.
Do anything quick. Okay, y'all. Okay. All right. Just 1 second. Is that it? Okay. Jake, if you're talking to us, we don't hear you. He may have stepped away.
Yeah, he said he was going to the restroom.
Oh, I didn't hear him say that. Okay. All right. A new one is coming out. So you can probably see me Googling and pulling up here the new one. It's March 1st is when they're supposed to produce it or supposed to start using it. Let's see. I know he wants to go over it though, the way he wants to go over it. So he'll be back.
All right. Sorry about that. Here I am.
Okay, let me get back to it, Jake. I was looking for the brand new one that comes out on March the 1st, but I guess we don't need that right now.
And they keep pushing it back, but I really have a good feeling it will be by the end of this first quarter. It's one signature, I believe, but the initials that you need to obtain are like in the middle of the document. It's new to us. So I would be lying to you if I could say, oh, just page 2 initial. I have to look at it. And they may have made some changes to it since we last saw it. But yeah, it was supposed to be employed by like last year. No, I think it was in 2019. They got pushed in the pandemic. So, but this one is very well alive. This is almost, it's going to be on every loan package. Now, there's an exception. When you don't see this, it might be a good idea to say to the hiring party, hey, I noticed there's not a 1003. Please advise. 2 things will happen. Oh, wow, thank you. Yeah, we need that signed. Or 2, they've already e-signed that on the lender's proprietary platform in advance. So when you see a closing package is like 50 or 60 pages, you could probably always ask, this is a little on the lighter load that I'm used to. Could some of this already been signed electronically or whatever, so.
Do you want to ask me for control?
You know what, since you have it pulled up. Yeah, it's whatever's easier.
Yeah, just ask for control and I'll hand it to you. But I think you have to ask for it.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. So early on, we're talking about the note. And I said only the person that is on the loan signs the document. This is number 2. This should handshake with it. only the person that you see here in the middle that's listed as the borrower signs this document. So again, you need to write or take notes that if your signers, they're moving right along and everyone that's at the table is signing everything, but we know they're not on the loan, then you need to stop and make sure they don't sign this. So usually at the top, now let's see how I'm going to craft my instructions to you. Quicken loans, why I like them even more. When it's just one person, they usually put on here no signature required or something along those lines. Traditionally speaking, especially if you know it's a loan officer, this does not often need to be signed. I don't care. This is the exception to the rule where we told you not to have something oversigned. Again, only the people that are here. So if it's one person and this is blank, then one person signs here. If this is signer one, signer two, signer one signs here, signer two signs here. So you get the gist of that. Now, on this document, I say explain, but you know what I mean. I'll say, okay, this is your loan application. This is going to be everything that you provided to the lender throughout the loan process. On page 1, please make sure your social, date of birth, I'll make sure this is all correct. And then you need to be on the lookout. They will hide initials here. And this is the number one thing on the loan app that signing agents miss. Not new, the seasoned ones. And I will tell you, seasoned signing agents are usually worse at obtaining signatures initials than new folks, because you guys go into this with a fresh mind. You go in and you're like, oh, this is the document they mentioned. Let me just double check to make sure. So don't let those veterans fool you or intimidate you, because they mess up. Trust me, they do. And a lot of them lie online. I said that earlier, but I'll say it again. On page 2, usually this mentions employment information, but if it's a VA loan and some FHA loans, this will be intentionally omitted. They're allowed to do so under those programs. Main thing is protection of veteran status and predatory lending. But anyways, some of these do not require initials or any involvement on pages 2 or 3, but it's your job to make sure that that's true. But most of this will be filled out. Now, this could be on letter or legal size. If it's on legal size, it's usually 4 pages. If it's on letter, it's usually 5 or 6 or more. The main thing is in this section, section 9, they always need to sign and date. And again, only the people who are on the loan. And then now, let me see if I can get this to show up. Sometimes these X's are really large. And in the loan originator, which is the loan officer, theirs is large too. When they sign this, they always will try to start there. So again, that's why we are signing agents. We're to pump the brakes, say, hang on page 3, 5, okay, page 4, make sure you sign here and just show it to them. Sign here on page 4. Don't sign here. This is your loan officer. But if you sign a date here, and then when you're done, I'll collect it back and you hand it over to them. Also, is there an addendum? Okay, yes. This is usually blank. I don't know why, but a lot of times it is. This is a catch-all page. So if they had additional creditors or assets or liabilities or anything in their portfolio that the preceding pages run out of room, this will be your overflow. Some lenders will intentionally type no information needed, or this page is intentionally left blank, something along those lines. But what happens is you'll see at the bottom, look how small that is, right? Well, when you hand this to them, if you're not paying attention, you're filling out your journal or you're multitasking too much, they're going to start signing here at the top, and they're not supposed to. So those are the common issues we have on 1003. And I'm glad we brought this up because this is stuff a lot of signing agents miss. All right.
Are you saying, Jake, that up there at the top, those 2 boxes are not for signatures, they are for information only?
Right.
And
Good lenders will have their good lenders will have their name printed, but I just find a lot of lenders, their software leaves these blank unless it's an FHA loan right here. But again, it's nothing for them to do. You may once in a while have a signer that is just the paper police. And like, well, this is blank and I would be comfortable signing this here. And I probably shouldn't mock them because, I can understand this is a big financial transaction. But I mean, if this is completely left blank, just let your hiring party know. Now, one thing that they cannot do anymore on almost any loan in any territory in our great country. They can't, oh, I don't like this. I'm going to strike this out. I'm going to strike this out. Now, if your signer's adamant about doing that, and that's the only way they'll sign, then it would be prudent of you to say, well, let's talk with your loan officer, because these documents may be promulgated, or the lender may be take issue with whatever. So let's get them the phone, let them, and you need to let that happen, because, and again, you have loan officers. I used to be one, so I'm going to say this and knock myself out. They're salespeople to a point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good ones are going to be like, no, my funder's not going to take that. You can't do that. But the loan funder or the loan closer, that's the person at the very end that's critiquing the title company's work, and they're critiquing your work. And they're like, no, they deny it. And the loan officer's like, well, I didn't know that, blah, blah, blah. Well, the notary should have done this. It's always the notary's fault. But understand that a lot of loan officers are really good, but they're seasoned. They've worked with other notaries, have done this. Other homeowners have done that. They've already learned from those mistakes. But when they're so new, or they're like, let's just see if it'll fly off radar, just go ahead and do that. That's fine, because the loan officer told the signer to do that. But anytime they want to start striking things out, then, be aware of that. I have found that times have changed. Attorneys used to love to attack these documents. The ones they usually attack are ones that are unique. They're not a federal form. They're one that the lender made them sign, or maybe is something they typed up and all that. Still alert your hiring party, but on these promulgated forms like the note and deed of trust, the days of anyone altering them are gone. They can't.
Okay, Jay, that brings up another question from Christine. If the boxes above are checked, are not checked, do we check them?
You can have a signer do that. Christine, and by the way, and Christine, I probably should ask your permission, but I'm going to brag on you. Christine is one of my number one signing agents in DFW. And we tried to tell you guys, you always need to stay on top of continuing education, things like that. So she's following all the rules. So thank you, Christine.
Okay, she says on the top of the the 1003.
Oh, those if the lender needed them, they usually check them, because that depends on if they're using joint income. And this document, you can kind of tell if that applies or not, but sometimes there's stuff behind the scenes we don't know. So if the lender did not check it, I would not have that checked. Let the lender be responsible for that.
Laura asked, if the borrower finds a mistake on the 1003, do they line through and correct?
That is best practice. Anytime they make any changes, you need to let the loan officer or your hiring party know. But on especially page 1, it'll say the years of school. They're like, well, I'm a doctorate. I went to school for 20 years. This says 12. And if they want to on this particular one, it's probably not a big deal because it's not notarized. This is something they could sign and correct. But if their social's not right, their date of birth, this is probably an exception that, yes, they can make those changes. The changes I'm talking about is the verbiage on the form, but the data, if it's not correct, then they should strike out an initial and put the right one, because they're signing on page 3 that everything in this document is true and correct. And if they falsify the information, this could get them in trouble between you and I and the fence post. So yes, it would be a necessity for them to correct
and
that.
I don't know if Laura asked this before or after. She says there is a new 1003, right, effective March 1st.
That date could change. But it's already out there for you to look at, but I know that they were going to tweak it. But yes, the appearance of it looks very similar to the closing disclosure.
Yeah. Bigger print and all that stuff.
Right.
This form has been around. This 1003 has been around for, I hate to tell y'all how long it's been around, but nearly 40 years, because I used to fill them in by pencil and then type them. Okay.
And then fax them. And then they would strike the corrections and fax them back. It was before scatters and emails. And I've been a part of that era too. So I'm not picking on Brenda.
I don't care.
But people are like, how have you done this? I'm like, when you used to have to use a fax for approval.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move right along, because I know we're over time here. We'll make it up. But I want to touch base on the 4506T.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
And we're still on the same section though, right?
I'm on slide 77.
Okay. Okay, I can't figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Oh, with the red button, y'all. Okay. All right. So you're going back to yours, right, Jake?
Correct. We're just a
Okay,
few
gotcha.
slides. We'll wrap this
You're
up
up.
and then we'll move
Yeah.
on. All right. So again, the 1003, then we have initial lines. There is a page that is in your package. It's the addendum. Let's see. Okay.
It is in there.
It is in there. Okay. So it's right after the 1003, but basically it looks like the 1003. So what happened the last 2, maybe 3 years, the demographics in the middle, they put a big X, or the lender shaded that out because they realized we need to be more modern on ethnicities and race. I've got a really good friend that moved to Puerto Rico, and when he comes back to Texas, people say, "Oh, you're from Mexico." And he's like, "That's fighting words. Just because we speak Spanish, not everybody's from Mexico." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, people, I can be ignorant. You know, they could be from Argentina and Central or Latin America." But so that demographic addendum now gives people more options to select, especially I think one of the big ones are people who are from an Asian country, that it opened it up. They actually included Pacific Islander and Hawaiian. I think Hawaiian's in there actually. And you know, just broadens it a little bit more. Sorry.
I brought it up. I
Oh, you
pulled
have
it
it?
up. Yeah. And
Let's
so when you're through, I'll close it. Can you not see it?
I'm sharing.
Okay.
Let's do that really quick. I know it's a pain, but let's do
Yeah,
it
just
one.
stop sharing and there it is.
Okay, perfect. So this time, you know, these are usually the normal ones, but they added Puerto Rican and Cuban, and they put Mexican. Usually it's either Hispanic or just Latino, or not Hispanic and Latino. And then on here, American Indian and Alaska Native, and then Asian, they added more on there. So finally, they're getting a little bit of common, because that format's been around, like Brenda said, for 30 plus years. And so the new 1003 will have this integrated. But Brenda, if you'll scroll down to the bottom, what we're saying on here, again, we're telling you, do not oversign. This is one exception to the rule. The reason why Chase has it on there, well, they'll actually draw an X and want it to be signed. Sometimes lenders don't, but they want it to be. So to be on the side of caution, if you just have that person sign, now again, if there's 2 signers, you're going to have 2 of these. So they'll each have their own one, but just have them sign and date or no date, doesn't matter. This is one to where if the lender needs it, great. If they don't, they can print a fresh copy and just shred it. The reason why, and I was telling Brenda this when we first started working together, is, you know, as an escrow officer in my branch that I worked in, we were like the largest in our region, and we were the second largest for that brand in the whole country, behind one little branch in California. So we saw everything from any lender you can imagine. And almost overall, the lender's like, "Why the notary not sign that?" And we're like, "Well, you don't, it's not signed." Or even us as the escrow officer, "Why don't you sign that or have them sign that?" Because it's not required. So with there being so much kickback, I'm just tell you, get it signed. If they don't need it, they can discard it.
Sign that demographic. Okie doke.
Right. Let's see.
All right, I will stop sharing.
Okay, and then let me finish these next few slides. I'd say there's some
Sure.
more questions, and then we'll get to those. With the weather we have coming, Amazon Prime is delivering, so I apologize for that ring chime in your ear. If any of you have dogs like Brenda and I, you have to start barking. All right. There we go. With full screen again. 1003 signing tips.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Okay.
Thumbs up.
All right. So we're moving right along. The 4506T form, that's going to be like the IRS form, which we won't have to pull that up, but it is in your handouts. You need to go ahead and write notes right now. It's just saying to look over that form, that this box is always checked. This box is always checked. Don't make me dance. All right. The next one is the W-9. Now, most of you are going to be signing individuals that are signing in their own personal individual capacity. So most often this box is checked. If you are signing an entity and none of the boxes are checked, then you want to show this to your signer saying, please check accordingly, because we're not going to know what they are. But in box number 3 on the W-9, because you guys are writing this down, box 3 on the W-9, there's a box that is always checked. These are common documents, by the way, that come back as rejected. So that's why I want to do that. All right. So finally, do it both ways. Every lender, every title company, and every escrow officer have their ways how they want to see things. And when you start getting direct business, you'll be like, hey, Capital Title across town does different than this Capital Title on the other side of the Metroplex. Different escrow officers, they all have different times they came in the business. They have different mentors. Some of their mentors were dinosaurs. Some of their mentors were someone that graduated college yesterday. You just don't know. So title companies do operate a little bit off the wall in the chart sometimes. But if it's legal and it's just their way of doing things and you're okay doing it, then they'll want to use you more. Because again, those escrow officers may have 2 separate clients, but their client they deal with the most, that loan funder may want things done a certain way. So when you start adopting, and that's the whole thing about this business and really any business, your process flow, or their process flow rather, somewhat becomes your process flow. So when you do that, that escrow officer is going to love you because you help take a lot more of a burden. For instance, they want 5 copies of notice right to cancel. Well, we know we need to leave 2, but they only sent you 2 in the package. That escrow officer is like, look, this lender always does that. You'll save me some time not having to print and scan. I would say, hey, okay, ABC lending on whatever, I will do that. If they don't need it in that particular one, then you have more you could shred. Got you. I got your back. I'm like, where's this notary coming from? Where, hold on to them, So just a little bit of things you can do to help advance getting that direct business. Let me move my microphone here. When you don't know if the non-barring spouse signs a certain form and you can't get the hired party on the phone, for instance, just do it both ways to save your agony and frustration. Okay, that's actually a good point. So that kind of throws a little wrench in what we've been telling you so far. So if there's sometimes there's just documents that the verbiage and the signer will say, hey, this says that the spouse or co-owner always signs this, but their name is not on here. When you start having that doubt, pull that copy from their package and say, okay, let's sign this as the lender or the doc preparer intended. But you know what? That is confusing. So sign it again, but both of you sign your copy. We'll include it in the package, and I'll let the title company or the signing service know, and that way they can kind of address it. And that's what we mean by that. But if it's the entire package, no, you don't want to do that. They really need to get someone on the phone if at all possible. But lenders, when they do this, when they prepare those documents, the underwriter, there's an attorney involved somewhere. They're not going to make that big of an oops. Usually it's an isolated document or 2. And again, when there's that doubt, just sign it as intended, sign it with everybody, and then whatever. Again, that is another exception to the rule. So you're quickly learning, thou shall not. But wait a minute, there might, maybe 1 or 2 little circumstances. So welcome to being a signing agent. These are decisions you have to make.
I know one night a notary called me because she was, in a stew over that. And there were 4 parties involved. And so we analyzed it. And finally I said, there's 3 ways to sign this. And I said, so what you're going to do is, do it this way, and this way, get all 3, take 3 copies of, it was the CD, or actually they were using a HUD because it was an investment property. But that's, and she said it was perfect, that, no problem, no pushback on it. So that's the way she did it, because we didn't know for sure what they wanted there.
Brenda, if you'll stop the recording and we'll move to 5.